When I consider my early childhood, the memories don't really feel like my own. Before about age 6, it feels like some mythic age where events are unconnected to real time and space. With the ushering in of the new millennium, I was reincarnated. Overshadowing my early memories at the time, I spent with my parents in a secluded cabin in deep woods. That was the transition period between my former consciousness and my present self. I retain every few specific anecdotes from that period, but the atmosphere and looms are large. I remember it being very cold all the time, and gloomy even during the day on the account of the pine trees that towered over in the cabin on all sides. I recall our stay in that place as being uncomfortable and unpleasant, but in a vague and hard to place to stay. For the 6 years of my life, my mother and I lived with my biological father. Like the cabin, my memories of him are disjointed. I remember us going through 3 or 4 different small churches before we switched to leading to devotions for the 3 of us at home. He kept repeating the idea that even the small churches had been taken over by the wolves. That too much I like to recall. He wasn't abusive or harsh, exactly just stern and cold. When I was nearing my 5th birthday, we suddenly moved from our house in the rural Missouri and to even more rural cabin in the north of Idaho. I learned from my mom that years later that not even she was sure where exactly in Idaho we were. My father didn't even own the place. He just took us to squat at some disused and forestry cabin with no list addresses. We took only what we could fit in our car and a large camper he had recently bought. I had to leave all my toys behind except one, my blue and yellow stuffed elephant that I took everywhere with me. It was the summer of autumn of 1999, and the cabin had no heating. For that matter, it had no electricity, phone service, or running water. My father brought a couple of generator units, but those were only used for most basic needs. We spent most of our time wearing extra layers indoors and shivering under blankets. We boiled water from a nearby creek on a hot plate. We had a large stock of canned food, to which it was the main source of our diet. There was one modern convenience, a radio, which my father kept on at all times. Like I said, I don't remember much from the specific events. If I had to pick a defining moment, it would be when my father had made me watch him skin and gut a rabbit. He didn't seem to know what he was doing, in which it made it worse. We celebrated my 5th birthday there. There was obviously no cake or presents. It was basically just my parents singing happy birthday song to me before a quick Bible devotion, and then we went back to working on our dreary homestead. My perception of them at time wasn't great back then, but before the spring of 2000, we moved back to Kirksville. I was very upset because I left my stuffed elephant in the cabin. My parents got a divorce very quickly very after. The divorce itself didn't take long, as they didn't have many possessions left to swabble over. Our old house had been sold, and now lived in a subsidized housing. But the custody issue was a bit messy. They eventually settled an visitation schedule acceptable for both of them, until my father suddenly decided to move away and break all contact with us. My mom got a boyfriend, and they were married by 2003. We attended a non-denominational church, more lively and inviting than the ones my real father had taken us to. My childhood and adolescence from that point forward was stable and happy. I had first asked about our time roughing in the wilderness when I was 9. My mother said it was all my father's plan, and that I was a lot stupider than how I am now. I learned more details as the years went on. The whole excursion had not been due to any sort of technophobia on my father's part. He was in fact an elderly adopter to the World Wide Web. That's what actually got us in this whole mess. He got involved with the whole Y2K craze. The people had convinced that there would be some kind of apocalypse in the beginning at the turn of the millennium. In particular, he was influenced by a certain blogger who said Europeans was going to happen. In 2000, and advised everyone moving to the Pacific Northwest to start building a community of Christian survivalists. We had been living the dream since 1997, in which he said we were about coming rapture. Originally, they were vague but vivid visions of the forest in which we were to find our destiny. Somehow it wasn't until he started following this blogger and he attributed to his dreams and needed to move to the Rocky Mountains. The radio had been kept a track of the unfolding apocalypse. When February of 2000 rolled around and the world would still appear to be functioning as normal, Mom found the courage to take this issue with the whole thing. My father, deflated and defeated, agreed to moving back and to the divorce without much of a fright. When the global war terror began in the next year, he briefly tried to assert the wisdom of his vision, if not its execution. But once my stepdad entered the picture and backed off, he then disappeared entirely. The next time I saw him, he was on his casket. During my junior year of high school, he took his own life. Apparently his later years he had been married and heavy drinking and gambling, two things in which he could never have anything to do with when he was in our lives. Not many people showed up to the wake or the funeral. From what we can learn from his few recent acquaintances, he hadn't attended a church since we last saw him alive. My relationship with my mom and stepdad had been cordial, but somewhat strained over since I went away to college in Boston and decided I liked it enough to stay for good, in which it was not the original plan. They were also grieved to learn that I had since fallen from faith. Actually, the truth is, I have been an atheist since I was 14. I still dwell a lot about this sojourn in the wilderness. It's been over 2 decades since the world had entered a new millennium, and I entered my new current life. I've been very happy along the way, but I've always felt like a part of me was missing, left behind at the doomsday bunker. That's why I decided to go back. I've been having reoccurring dreams about the forest and our little cabin, beckoning for me to return. I don't know what the exact location of the cabin, or even if it still exists, but my old self is still out there somewhere in Idaho wilderness. I have to go find him. I've stocked up what I hoped would be enough supplies for the lengthy road excursion. Unlike my parents, I never had much of a weight of worldly possessions to part with this privilege. It was just an apartment deposit and some voucher had paid stuff. Maybe I'll find my old self right away, or maybe I'll be wandering in the backwoods of Idaho for years. Maybe he'll find me first. Maybe I'll find God along the way. Maybe I'll even find my stuffed elephant. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.